Hi and welcome to Open, the show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world to you. I'm Kibin Alleyne, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up, the Vice President of Wheeler, Wilson & Johnson Community Projects, Inc. speaks on their upcoming toy drive. Then we speak with the Executive Director of NYC Love Kitchen to learn how they're helping fight food insecurity. After that, the CEO of the New York Apartment Association shares details on their fight for affordable housing in NYC. Later on, we were joined by Principal of Meyer Levin School for the Performing Arts and the CEO of Black Inc. to talk about the importance of encouraging kids to dream big. And finally, a celebrity chef speaks about a new program to get fresh herbs and how you can use them to elevate your holiday dishes. So stay tuned. All this and much more is headed your way because we're now officially open. Hello everyone, I'm Kibin Alleyne and today is Tuesday, December 10th. You are now watching Open, a program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. Don't forget to stay connected with us via social media at BronxNet TV. Wheeler, Wilson & Johnson Community Projects Incorporated promotes and protects the privileges and interests of residents of the Bronx County. One of their upcoming efforts is their toy drive. Here to tell us more is the Vice President of WWJ, Quanda Jones. Quanda, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Now, can you tell me a little bit more about your organization, Wheeler, Wilson & Johnson Community Projects?
Sure. So Wheeler, Wilson & Johnson Community Projects was established in 1994 in the Bronx. So we're a charitable organization that focuses on providing educational as well as charitable gifts to our Bronx residents and beyond. We also work in collaboration with the Eta Omega Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Now, I want to say congrats on 30 years. That's amazing for any organization, especially when you're doing the work that you're doing. With that, how does the organization engage a healthy interest in the civic affairs of the community?
So we partake in charitable events throughout the year. So for example, today is Giving Tuesday, but we also host an annual scholarship drive typically in the summer months. It's called Rose on the Green, and that's really our big annual fundraiser that allows us to raise funds to support our scholarships to upcoming students, upcoming high school seniors in the community. We also have, smaller charitable events, but Rose on the Green is our biggest endeavor that allows us to generate funds to fund as well as sustain our scholarships.
Now, I'd love to learn a little bit more about AKA Teen Rites of Passage. I love the entire college feel that it has. Can you tell us a little bit more about that program?
Absolutely. So we actually refer to it as the Teen Rites of Passage. It's like a subset of our sorority chapter, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, but it's focused on teens. So in this program, it's a one-year intensive program. It's a mentoring program where we engage young ladies, high school age, no cost to them, in life skills. So for example, we teach financial literacy, we teach etiquette, we have workshops on the history of our people and just those life skills that young ladies need that are possibly absent either in the home or just in the community. It's a year-long program. It's purely voluntary. Mentors, which are members of the chapter, volunteer their time once a week from September to January, and then starting in January, we meet with the young ladies twice a week through June. And we culminate the program with we don't do cotillions per se, so we culminate with the rites of passage, similar to what you would find in our African native countries, just to say that they have arrived, they've learned their lessons and their life skills, and we present them to the community.
That's amazing, and it's amazing to see that there's an effort to kind of help young women and girls, in areas like the Bronx. I think that's an awesome, initiative. So I want to definitely highlight that. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the toy drive, which supports, our younger New Yorkers. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So this is the season of giving, and we love the holidays. So annually we host the toy drive, and it's actually named after a former president of our organization who just had a fond affinity of the children as an educator, and giving back to the community, called the Helen Tomlinson Annual Toy Drive. Annually, we decide to focus on a different initiative within the Bronx, and this year we'll be supporting Children of Promise, which is an organization that is focused on helping children and families that are affected by mass incarceration. No child should be left behind. We try to get rid of the stigma of families and children who have loved ones in incarcerated situations, and that's where we're focusing our efforts today.
Now, before donating a toy, is there anything our viewers should know about what it's acceptable to bring?
Pretty much we accept most toys. We just do not promote violence, so we are very specific in no guns. We ask for unwrapped toys just to ensure the safety of the toy, the age appropriateness of the toy. This year we're focusing on children from the ages of 6 to 13.
Now, can you tell us about any other holiday efforts your organization does?
Well, as we're winding down for 2024, the toy drive is actually going to be one of our last efforts. But for Thanksgiving, we partnered with Project Bravo, a part of the Montefiore Food Pantry, and we gave out food to residents of the Bronx again. All year round, we have a variety of initiatives where we're partnering. So we're winding down. And the toy drive will actually be the last for 2024, but we pick right back up in 2025 with our MLK Day of Service.
That's amazing. Well, I think ending off anything with toys always sounds like a fun way to kind of end off the year. I'm curious to know, how does it feel to kind of be a part of an initiative like this, and what has it been like, for the past couple of years that you've been doing it?
So I always focus on, it's just much bigger than myself. It's much bigger than the members in the chapter. We are a chapter of over 110 members. And just to see the smiles on the face of the children, of the community people that we help, it's just a surreal feeling, because, you could be one step away from a meal or a toy or anything for that matter. So just to see the gratification on the faces of the people that we encounter is just a heartwarming feeling.
Now, whether we're giving toys to, our youngest of, Bronxites, or, helping our older ones with college, why is it so important that we kind of take a moment to focus on our youth?
Because the youth is our future, and that might sound cliche, but we pour into what our future is, and it's important to us. Wheeler, Wilson, and Johnson and Alpha Kappa Alpha are both service organizations that focus on women with high scholastic aptitude and goals. So we just want to impart that to our youth and show them that, there are women of color out here who are doing a good work. And I hate to say, but I'm going to give a shameless plug. Our current vice president is also a member of our organization, and you can attain for anything. Anything is possible. So we like to show that in real time. And we're a Bronx chapter, so we focus on the Bronx, but we're open to all communities.
Now, what do you hope to see for the future, of the program?
We've been here for over 30 years. We're not going anywhere. Our organization as a whole is over 116 years. So I see us just going into infinity. So we're here to stay, and we're here to continue with the support of the community and donations, and give back from our chapter members. We're not going anywhere.
That's amazing. Now, where can people go to connect with you and the organization?
So if you just log on and go to WheelerWilsonJohnson.org, click on the link. We're also on Instagram. We're on Facebook. Look at the programs that we offer, what we've done in the past, and how we continue to support the community. And, there's a donate button.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us. It seems like your organization is doing some really amazing work, and I love, again, the addition of kind of having that college presence there. I think it's really great for the kids to see that. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
If you would like to learn more about their efforts, please go to their website at wheelerwilsonjohnson.org. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Open right after this.
Hey, creative family. My name is Timothy Coleman, and I'm the Director of Education here at BronxNet. And I'm standing in BronxNet's Media and Technology Studios in the South Bronx because I want to let you know about an amazing program that we're bringing back that highlights the creativity of community members just like you. Emerging Media Makers is a show that introduces you to BronxNet's certified producers. They've taken a step in their creative journey by enrolling in BronxNet's media training classes. On this show, you'll get to see the many ways that our certified producers have created a space that's all their own. Emerging Media Makers, your passion lives here.
Welcome back. The NYC Love Kitchen serves people in need with freshly cooked meals, an emergency food pantry, and referrals to community services. Their mission is to feed and mend lives through food, social services, and the bread of life. Here with us now to tell us more about their efforts is the Executive Director for NYC Love Kitchen, Walter Sotelo. Walter, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, can you tell me a little bit more about NYC Love Kitchen?
Yes, of course. So the organization is a not-for-profit that was started out of a response of a community meeting in Inwood back in the 80s. So we're about 37 years old. We're going to be celebrating 38 years this December.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
And a local pastor, Reverend Tom Maharis, and a business owner, Mr. Jules Jones, who actually was a singer in the doo-wops in the early 1950s. Just raised their hands because someone asked, what can you do with the homeless population? And they endeavored to start this organization to be able to respond to the need of food, shelter, any of the situations that we were facing in the 1980s. So now it grew out of a mom and pop shop per se, and we're a larger organization serving a greater population in Manhattan and the Bronx.
Well, I want to say, one, that's amazing work. And New York City is very diverse. How do you, kind of deal with all the different backgrounds in a respectful, manner while you're helping people?
Yeah, it's not just about the diversity, it's about the likes of food that we all have. So we have preferences, we have cultural backgrounds that have been taught by the grandparents, mom and dads. So what we do is we basically, as an organization that serves food, we look to meet what we have as a nutritional value to the families. We do have incredible requests, sometimes for very strange vegetables that I personally have never heard of, but of our staff they've heard of, and so we try to meet those needs if we find them. So we do procure food, we buy food, or we also have food that is donated, and we do culturally feeding meals as well. So our soup kitchen does diversity of food, seafood, meats. We also do halal, we do vegetables, vegetarian, and it is a matter of as our clients or our constituents or people that we serve tell us what they prefer, we try to meet those needs. So we know that the palate is a very good entry to the heart, and we want to be able to have a resume of trust with the clients, the population, the people that we help.
Now, why is it important to get fresh and nutritional food to those in need?
Well, if you're not eating healthy, your mind is not going to think healthy. Your body's not going to function well. I'm not a nutritionist. It's not my background, but we do work with Columbia University and nutrition doctors, dentists, and what we've realized is what you eat really forms your life. It gives you the right energy. It helps you to be able to think clearly. We do nutritional classes and courses, workshops. We do believe that the fresher the produce, the better it is, that it tastes better. Now, there are many new scientific, ideas and projects that actually prepare food very well when it's frozen and it's actually served in small doses of like a little cube or things like that that are really wonderful.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more about the pop-up pantries that happen on the first and second Saturday of every month?
Yes. So the pop-up pantries or mobile pantries came out of a response during the COVID pandemic. So we would be serving from our location, our hub in Upper Manhattan, and when everything closed down, families weren't going outside, and we decided to be able to pivot and go to the neighborhoods. And so we started using the streets as the location to gather. That allows us to be able to form community. So the community members, they come out, they clean the streets, they save the spots for us to be able to set up, and they function in a manner where is every single Saturday, the community comes together and it rotates because we have a large population of people that we serve. We can't serve the amount of people that are needing food with the food insecurity that is in New York. So what happens is that we go to them, and it is a lot easier because traveling with groceries in the cold winter, is very difficult. And we try to make it as more dignity and respect and honoring of the people that receive the food. We believe that we're not better off, we're serving one another, and we believe that that is something that they appreciate.
Now, can you tell us about your partnership with IS 528 and the Juan Pablo Duarte PS 132?
Oh, wow, that's a great story. A long time ago, a teacher that was working with us in some missions, she was a young girl, decided to be able to come to New York after she graduated and became a teacher at a local school. Pandemic happened, she had some situations with vaccinations, she was let go from the Department of Education, and someone heard her story, and basically what they said is that they wanted to help her, but she said, no, I want you to help my students. And that individual started helping the students by giving them food. But he wasn't a soup kitchen, pantry, grocery owner, and nothing. It was just a person that felt out of New York to help someone. So the Robin Hood Foundation contacted us and said, we have someone that wants to be able to help. And we began to do supplemental groceries to the school. So basically, it helps the families that are working poor, vulnerable, to be able to come to the school when they drop the kids off and they pick them up, they get a bag of groceries. So the model has now been running for about 3.5 years, and it is incredibly successful because we influence the nutritional value of the families. They get to tell us, like, we would like to have this food, that food, and obviously it's culturally fitting. But it kind of saves them time too, because most of these families are working either with single parent homes or single guardians, and they don't have time to go grocery shopping. And food insecurity is really about managing your economics. Like, how much money do you have, and what can I do? Do I pay the rent? Do I take the bus?
There's a lot of factors.
It's a lot of factors, and New York City is very stressful when it comes to working. So this program really facilitates saving time, and it's quote unquote very successful because the children get so excited when they see the food arriving in the morning, and the parents involve themselves in the schools to sort out and pack. So we don't do all of that, which would be volunteers. And they've become a community, an extension of our organization.
So you mentioned volunteers, and I want to talk about that. Can you quickly, because we're almost at the end of our segment, but I want people to know how they can actually get involved as a volunteer to kind of help with this mission.
Wonderful. Volunteers are our blood. Basically, that's how we function. As an organization, not for profit, we try not to have high costs on everything. So the way that they would be able to involve themselves with us is on our website, New York City, NYC Love Kitchen.com. And there is a little push tab that you can say, I'd like to volunteer. I would say the volunteers, you have to be patient because we have to vet you. We definitely want to make sure we have people that can actually be trusted, that I will be punctual and say if I'm going to serve at a certain time, they will show up. And obviously we have understandings of that. So just basically contact us. We have options for you learning how to cook, do nutrition, economic development. We work with asylum seekers, relocation, resettlements, immigration lawyers. I mean, the opportunities are unending. Graphic designers, photographers. I mean, it could go on and on.
Well, Walter, I want to thank you so much for joining us. It seems like an amazing program. There's so many different avenues people can take if they want to volunteer. And as we know, in New York City, the need is great. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us about the work that you're doing to support our community.
Thank you. And we're just one of the hundreds of pantries that are serving our city. So we consider ourselves a part of a team. Thank you for having me.
To learn more about the programs they offer, please go to their website at nyclovekitchen.com. Stay tuned. We have more for you right after this.
"19.7% of Bronxites currently experience food insecurity. Meanwhile, instead of these nice, colorful foods, this is the best food that they have access to. If this sounds like you, there are a bunch of resources to get healthy food for free or cheap. If you want to help, you might consider donating or volunteering in one of these places. Community fridges like this one are all over the city and allow New Yorkers to conveniently donate extra food to people who might need it. Go to this link and find your nearest one. Food banks and pop-up events like these provide millions of healthy meals to families in need. These organizations are distributing meals to Bronxites as we speak and are always accepting donations and volunteers.
Welcome back. The New York Apartment Association promotes responsible housing policies to preserve affordable housing for future generations of New Yorkers. They seek to improve the relationship between housing providers and renters. Sitting with me in studio to discuss their fight is CEO of NYAA, Kenny Burgos. Kenny, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Now, can you tell me a little bit more about the mission of the New York Apartment Association?
Sure. The New York Apartment Association's main goal is to improve housing throughout New York City by improving it just for owners and also for renters as well.
Now, the NYAA is a new organization who started the idea, and how did NYAA become, to be?
Yeah, so we have a lot of long-term generational property owners that have been operating housing in the city of New York for decades, and they recognize now in recent times they want to be more engaging with government, with politicians, with community, with stakeholders, and so the mission is now to work in partnership with government, again, to improve housing across the city, because there's a lot of issues at hand that we're facing, both in terms of affordability, in terms of development, in terms of just making overall neighborhoods better and improve.
Now, how is NYAA setting the industry standard for multifamily housing?
We work with thousands of owners, and we make sure we uphold them to a higher standard to make sure that they're operating not only by all the proper laws and guidelines, but being sure that they're a model housing provider. We house literally hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers throughout the city, and we want to make sure that we're providing the most quality and best possible housing throughout the city of New York.
Now, what are some of the most challenging, or what are some of the challenges New Yorkers face in regard to affordable housing? And I know this has been a long time issue for our city.
Long time is an understatement. New York City has been under a housing emergency for over 60 years. I don't know many emergencies that last that long, but quite honestly, the emergency is mostly attributed to lack of supply. Most experts suggest that we're short about 500,000 units of housing throughout the city, and that's going to help to bring rents down. It's a simple supply and demand issue. Other cities have done this and have actually seen their rents fall down, and New York City simply has to build more housing in order to drop the price of rents.
Now, I'm curious to know, as for me, I started hearing more about this kind of after the pandemic. That's where we saw a lot of that. Can you explain, although it's been 60 years, why are we now hearing about it so much more?
I think you're hearing it more because there was a really stark number that came out recently where the vacancy rate is where we always determine the housing emergency. Anything under a 5% vacancy rate is considered a housing emergency, again, which the city has had for 60 years. But we reached a 1.4% vacancy rate, which is just so ridiculously low. It essentially paints an image of any New Yorker looking for an apartment or housing right now is fighting for a low amount of tens of thousands of apartments throughout the entire city, which is just crazy.
Now, how does the NYAA feel about the City of Yes, and how will this help the housing crisis in NYC?
We're big supporters of the City of Yes. Like I said, the way to get out the housing crisis is to build. The City of Yes is probably the most, one of the boldest policies pushed forth by City Hall in decades to produce roughly about 80 to 100,000 brand new units of housing. But I told you the number before, we need is 500,000. So even the City of Yes alone won't solve this housing crisis because that plan is to build these housing units over 15 years. We need a lot more immediate results now.
Now, when it comes to housing in NYC, there are so many different layers. It's a very multi-layered issue.
Yeah.
How does your organization decide, what's the top priority to focus on?
Yeah, so for a lot of our members and our owners, we operate specifically in the rent-stabilized housing industry, and that is about roughly half the rental market. So most of our focus is in the rent-stabilized industry, but of course, housing is all interconnected. So we support good housing policy in any regard, but we focus mostly in the rent-stabilized world.
And with that, I don't know if this kind of relates to it as well, but when there are places that are available, a lot of New Yorkers just aren't making enough money to afford living in the city. How does the organization address that as well?
Yeah, I think affordability is the number one concern on every New Yorker's mind, whether it comes to food insecurity, whether it comes to housing, whether it comes to health insurance. So for us, one of our main policy goals is expanding voucher access. We have Section 8 vouchers at the federal government, city FEVS vouchers at the city level, and those have been helpful to help New Yorkers get housed and stay housed. But there's a lot more improvements, cutting a lot of bureaucratic red tape. I mean, if anyone's ever dealt with the voucher process, they know that this can be a years-long process, and sometimes your options are very limited. So our goal at NYAA is to expand those options and also to expand access by working with government to improve it.
Now, how does NYAA or NYAA plan to improve the relationship between housing providers and renters?
So we're doing that every day, but I think the way we're going to really build upon that is to show that we're part of the community, right? So many of our owners, beyond just being a housing provider, have been excellent neighbors and stakeholders in their communities for generations. Some of the ways we do that, we have owners who actually help with food pantries up in the Inwood section. We have food pantry every Saturday. I just was finished with them doing a turkey drive last week. And those are small ways to give back, but on top of that, working with local elected officials, working with local community stakeholders, seeing where we could be a partner beyond just a housing provider. I mean, we have members who, beyond someone just living in their building, have helped tenants apply for SCREE and DRE, apply for one-shot deals, helping them to stay in these neighborhoods. And I think building upon that legacy is going to help us have a much better symbiotic relationship with tenants and with property owners.
Now, I want to talk about property tax system. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and why it needs to be reformed?
We can talk all day on property taxes, but we have one of the most unequal property tax systems in New York City. And when it comes to rent stabilization, our owners are taxed at the full rate for property taxes, often taking about 30% of the rent check. And what happens, it's essentially a government tax that's pulling money away from that building. And that's why we're seeing so many buildings throughout the city fall into disrepair, because you have a regulated system that limits the income building can take in, but then you're also taxing it at the full amount, just unlike some other new buildings that receive property tax breaks, unlike other different property tax classifications. So the city really has to rework the property tax system to make it work for everyone.
Now, I know this may be kind of a loaded question, but it's been on my mind. Why does NYC have such a huge affordable housing crisis?
Well, again, it really does go back to supply. That's the main culprit here, but you tie in the supply issue with housing policy that's been happening for decades. I was a former state lawmaker, and I worked for many years to try and improve the housing scenario in New York State and New York City. But it's so complicated, it's so intertwined. This will take some time to remove that bureaucratic red tape, but when you have like unfunded mandates that come down from city council, these costs add up and take away from potential operations of a building. You tie that in with inflation that we're seeing, you tie that in with people want to live in the city. It's the greatest city in the country, greatest city in the world. So that's a high demand. You have to meet that demand with the supply. So all these tools are needed to create a better housing scenario and really to increase affordability.
Now, what do you hope to see for the future, of this organization? As you mentioned, it's been 60 years. So,
Yeah.
I guess in the next 60, what do you hope to see?
My hope is New York City becomes a much more affordable city to live in and neighborhoods to live in. My hope is that our industry as a whole can come out of what is a very dark era right now. We have many buildings that may be falling into insolvency and disrepair. I don't like to say the sky is falling, but we have potential to look much like the 80s if we don't get on the right track right now. So my hope is to overall fix housing in New York City. Small goal.
And then what can, viewers or just the average New Yorker do to kind of help with this issue?
Sure. I would say tune into our social media channels at Housing NY. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, you name it. And what we're doing every day is providing not only information on what we're pushing for in terms of good policy, but also sharing information what's going on in the news on a daily as it relates to housing policy in New York City and in New York State.
Well, Kenny, I want to thank you so much for joining us. This is definitely an issue I've seen just kind of unravel before me.
Yeah.
And just to hear that it's been going on for 60 years is quite alarming. So I'm so glad that you were here to kind of educate our community about this.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
To learn more about the NYAA fight, please go to their website at housingny.org. We have to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Open after this. Welcome back. Meyer Levin School for the Performing Arts in Brooklyn welcomed entrepreneur and reality TV star Ceaser Emanuel from VH1's Black Ink crew as a special guest at their town hall. Joining me now to discuss this interaction with students is the principal of Meyer Levin School for the Performing Arts, Jamie Hendrickson, and the CEO of Black Ink, Ceaser Emanuel. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Now, Jamie, can you tell me a little bit more about your performing arts school?
Absolutely. Meyer Levin is the school with the community on its mind. We curate opportunities for our students to gain access to experiences that help them build a competitive edge and discover their greatness. It's important that they have a plan before they leave us, even though it's a middle school. Once students know what their purpose is, their focus is, they make better decisions moving forward.
Now, I always wish that I went to a performing arts school, so this is pretty cool because you get to do really cool things like this. But before we get into Ceasar's recent visit to the school, can you tell us a little bit more about the concept behind having these town halls and why they started?
So town hall has been the way Meyer Levin has gathered for years. However, under my watch and with partnership with my dean, Ennis, we've created a Sunday dinner experience. We make sure that students are competing, they're courageous, we love on each other, we help them build love of themselves, we help them build voice, and it's just the way that we gather and take care of one another. It's a great experience.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, Ceaser, before we talk about your visit to the school, you've accomplished so many things, and so many people know you for great things. But can you tell us a little bit more about your company, Black Ink?
I mean, a lot of people, what people don't know is Black Ink, we do a lot of charitable work. Like, we do a lot of tattoos, we open up shops and stuff like that. We try to show our people basically the culture. That's why I really open up all my tattoo shops in the hood, to show people like you can do it too. So with Black Ink and us doing everything as far as giving back and showing that we're part of the community is only right.
Now, I understand that you believe education and community investment are vital for inspiring the next generation.
Yeah.
And even with what you said, just having your business, be in urban areas throughout New York City, can you explain why that's so important?
Because a lot of us, especially growing up, we always think the only way to get out of the hood is to be basically an athlete or a performer or entertainer. And sometimes that's not everything, you feel me? Especially with these kids nowadays, they think, oh, I get on reality TV, my life is golden. That's not how it is. What you're supposed to do is structure your life, and if you get there, cool. If you don't, you're supposed to have a plan B.
Now, what I think is so cool is that it's about artistic expression in a way. Tattoos are a form of art, and it's showing, like as you mentioned, that it's not just about maybe doing sports or doing other things that we're used to seeing. That you can do things in art. Can you explain why that's important? And then you could also piggyback on why it's important for kids to see that.
Because I feel like with art, especially in the minority culture, is really not put on a pedestal as far as other cultures. Like, we see artists making millions and millions of dollars, and you see artists building cities. They ask for artists to actually do art in cities. So it's like, how can we express ourselves if we don't know that craft? And a lot of kids, when I was growing up, I used to draw comic books and stuff like that. These kids don't do that no more. And I feel like the art is being basically taken away from our culture, because when I go around the world, I go to Italy, there's art schools, and they start them off for free from 5 years old. These kids are painting at master level at 10. What about us? You feel me?
And art is a form of expression. And a lot of our students, especially through COVID, they danced their way through it. They sang their way through it. My students performed their way through it. And it's not always about what's happening in the classroom for the reading and writing and the math classes, right? But it's another way for our students to discover, wow, I'm great at this. And it's something, once they love it, they chase after that feeling. And it's important for them to develop all aspects of themselves, the academic, the sports, the performing arts, but even more important for them to develop their voice. And art is a way for us to speak our truth, our stories, our struggles, get through our trauma. It's important for students to have access to that.
Now, I'm curious to know, how were you able to have this amazing opportunity for your students to hear from Ceaser?
So we have a wonderful program in our school called the Arthur Project, and the educational director of the Arthur Project connected us to Ceaser, and this is what has generated, hopefully, an ongoing partnership where he's supporting the community and we're supporting him as well.
Now, how did it feel to actually have that moment to speak to the kids, the next generation?
I'm not gonna tell you no lie. It was kind of something different, because I'm used to talking to people, adults and stuff like that. To talk to the kids and try to keep their attention, I felt like I had to make sure that they want to hear something that they really want to hear. And most of the time, if it was me, I don't want to hear somebody preaching. I want to hear how you got it. If you're just like me, you can't sit here and say, yo, I got a business and I got it from my parents. Nah, I want to hear, yo, listen, I started out the mud just like you're about to start out the mud, and you smarter than me. You can make way better decisions and make it way further in life than me.
Now, one of your messages to the kids was that, your right now does not dictate your future. Why did you choose this particular message to share?
Because you have to understand, some of these kids are living in poverty and living in an environment that is just, they think that's supposed to dictate their future. And me coming from an environment that was basically, it was drugs and crime and all that stuff. And basically, you have to understand, you don't necessarily have to be part of it. You could be the difference. Sometimes people fall in the, I want to be a follower. These kids need to be leaders. That's what we need nowadays, especially for the next generation, because we have 2-3 generations that was just followers. And now we have to see our world is turning around to a better place, and the kids are the future.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, Jamie, how do you inspire students to dream big, and how do you provide them with the tools to achieve those dreams?
So just like Ceaser said, we have to be transparent about our story, first and foremost. I'm the youngest of 5, grew up in the projects, first to graduate college. So it's important that we share those stories with our students to know that they can also do better, right? But then my job as an educator, my purpose as an educator, is to turn the mirror into a window. So I'm speaking to those students who only know a 3-block radius, the corner store, the school, the playground, and giving them access to dream beyond their current situation. And that's what we do every day, because we're honest, and we're also exposing them to things that's beyond their current environment to allow them to dream big. I'm a big proponent of staying ready so you don't have to get ready. That is my message to students every day. Walk with a purpose, know why you are here, and that will help you make better decisions. So just giving them the character, the grit, the perseverance to get through whatever this world is showing them, offering them, and understand that what has happened now does not determine what can happen tomorrow.
And I want to add that I think for a lot of people in my generation, or probably before, we didn't have principals that looked like us and had, our same background. Can you explain, what impact that you've seen that have on the kids?
So it's interesting, when I started teaching, I still dressed very corporate. I have a corporate background. But to connect with my students, I rock my sneakers. I wear my suits with my sneakers. I make sure that I'm encouraging them to love themselves. So it's important that they see you, but also know that it's okay to shift in between rooms, and it's okay to be yourself in every room, but showing up with the proper wears, hairstyle, gear, words, everything. So it's important that we are just honest with our students, because we're going back and forth between environments, audiences, and we have to really meet them where they're at.
And I'm curious to know, what has the feedback been from the students, after this visit?
Listen, whenever someone that looks like us shows up and shares their story, it's powerful. He has encouraged students to reflect, students to dream beyond their right now, and it's important for our men to show up in education. I don't know if you know, but education is really ran by women, right? So it's important that our men show up and encourage our young men and our young ladies by sharing their story. So students are talking now, because now they've seen another side of him other than what the TV has offered. He really shared something that was personal, and the students can relate to that, and it encourages them to do more for themselves.
Well, I think this was a beautiful initiative. I love to see it. It's great to see, people who've done really amazing things come back to smaller communities and share their stories. So, and with that, I want to say thank you both, for sharing your story here with us in the Bronx. I know you're from Brooklyn, but, we're all a New York City family.
Yes.
But with that, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
We have to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Open right after this.
What's up, creative family? Discover your voice with BronxNet community media classes. Are you ready to bring your ideas to life? At BronxNet, we offer television production classes for community members ages 18 and over, empowering you to share your vision with the world. Get certified in field production, in-studio production, and our new exciting addition, podcast production. Once certified, you can create your own show to air on one of our 6 TV channels. It all starts with our free Unleash Your Ideas Masterclass, designed to help you plan your show idea and set you up for success on your production journey. This class is offered at the beginning of each month for your convenience. Our dedicated BronxNet team is here to support, encourage, and uplift you every step of the way. Join us and become a part of the creative force that engages and inspires the Bronx community and beyond. Sign up today and start your media journey with BronxNet. Visit bronxnet.org/education to learn more and register. Let's create something amazing together.
Welcome back. Duran Gardens is kicking off the Wilt Insurance Program, a fun and unique initiative to help you say goodbye to wilted herbs once and for all. Celebrity chef George Duran is also joining this program with a lineup of delicious holiday recipes that will elevate your seasonal meals in an instant. Here in studio to speak on their partnership is Chef George Duran. Chef George, thank you so much for joining us.
What a pleasure. I hope you're hungry.
Now, could you tell me a little bit more about Duran Gardens?
Yeah, you know, Duran Gardens is an incredible company because they've created this thing to kind of speed up the process in cooking in your home. So, for example, winter is upon us, and not everybody's able to grow herbs in their backyard here in New York City because it's winter. And for that reason, you have to constantly go out and shop for fresh herbs. What Duran has done is created a system, a way to actually have fresh garden herbs, garlic and ginger right there in your freezer whenever you need it. So in a pinch, if you're needing, let's say, a clove of garlic, a chopped clove of garlic, Duran is able to offer you these kind of packets that are in your freezer aisle. And when you turn it around, you'll see these little crushed garlic cubes. And each one of these cubes is about a clove of garlic already crushed for you. And all you're going to be pretty much doing is kind of turning it around, grabbing your garlic cube, turning it around, opening it up just like this, and literally popping each one of these guys out so you can actually just use it as garlic. And the same thing with all the herbs, ginger, turmeric, dill, cilantro, so on and so forth.
I love this one. I am big on convenience, so I love it already. But before we talk a little bit more about what we have on the table, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself as a chef?
Oh my goodness, as a chef, as myself, well, first of all, I'm a New Yorker. I'm born and raised actually in Venezuela, so I'm an immigrant New Yorker. I came here when I was 15 years old, and the passion for food was in my blood like a Latino. From there, it kind of grew, and I started getting a media communications degree from NYU, and then I went to Paris to learn some French cuisine because, you know, the French and their foods are not bad, I hear. So both of those passions of communications from NYU and my culinary degree in France kind of helped me become who I am today, hosting shows, Food Network, TLC, working at Good Morning America, just constantly bringing both of my passions together. And I think that's the secret to life, is to find two really good passions and kind of figuring out how you can kind of meld them together and create a wonderful career.
Now I'm curious to know, just combining these two loves and, these two things that you are interested in, what made you decide to go full force into culinary?
My goodness, my mother. Who else? What else? Of course. I mean, there is no way that she would say, I love you. The way she said, I love you was, are you hungry? Do you want to eat? What do you want to eat? I mean, that was our communication in our home, is through food. And a lot of families I know of, immigrants particularly, that's kind of the way. It's all about enjoying the food and using the food as a social tool amongst your family, but also amongst friends now.
Now, I want to talk about Duran Gardens just again. They launched their new Wilt Insurance Program. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, this is really exciting. So quite often, again, during the wintertime, you buy herbs, and the worst thing is to have it wilted in your fridge, in your little plastic bags. So what Duran Gardens has done is created this website called wiltinsurance.com. You go to wiltinsurance.com, you take a photo of your wilted herbs. It's got to be wilted. And what they'll do is they'll send you actually a coupon for a free Duran Gardens herb packet, and all you do is you go to the supermarket and get it for free right over there. So it's wiltinsurance.com, and it's actually pretty awesome. I've never heard of this before, and when they came up with it, I was like, that is genius, because I promise you, you go into my fridge right now, there's quite a few wilted herbs in there.
Now, I want to talk about what we have on the spread. It's amazing. Can't ignore it any longer, and I can definitely smell the herbs. Can you talk about or kind of guide us through what we have here today?
Yeah, I think I wanted to be inspired with my New York City upbringing here for the last 30, 40 years. I don't know how old I am anymore. But I want to start off with, I've been living in Harlem for the last 10 years, and the things that I love about Harlem, one of the things that I actually enjoy, especially during the holiday season, is to see all these tables outside on the sidewalk set up with giant sweet potatoes, collard greens, you name it. All these ingredients are just being sold on the street, and it just inspires me to create this wonderful ginger-infused sweet potato. And I say it's inspired this way because you have to not be afraid of combining different flavors. And believe it or not, ginger pairs really well with the sweetness of sweet potato. So that's kind of what I've done. And again, here we are again with the Duran Gardens. It is a fact that no one in the world knows how to peel ginger, not even myself. Like 100% of people in the world don't know how to peel ginger, and that's fine because Duran Gardens does it for you. They literally set up these cubes of crushed ginger, and all you do is you pop them out of your freezer, and you have fresh ginger in a heartbeat. So that's kind of what I've created over there. From there, I kind of went to my, it's close to the Upper West Side, and so I made some latkes for Hanukkah. This year, it's Christmaka. It's a combination of both of them. But I wanted to do something extra special, and I ended up doing parsley or cilantro herbed latkes and latkes, however you pronounce them. But that herb that adds another layer of like just extra flavoring to it that I absolutely love. And this is actually now my mother-in-law's, who's actually Jewish, her favorite latke recipe from this point forward.
That's amazing.
And then we move forward to this Christmas tree that you have over here. Well, this is one of the bigger ones, I say. So again, we grab the Duran Gardens crushed garlic. I'm going to roast this garlic. And if you know how to roast garlic, you know that it takes forever to pop it into the oven for hours on end, or maybe 1 hour, then you roast the garlic. Well, what Duran Gardens does is you kind of peel this back, and you kind of, here it is again, and you're just going to kind of just push it right through, and you get these cubes of garlic. You add a little bit of olive oil to this. You pop it in the microwave for a minute, and up comes this wonderful roasted garlic. You put some behind your ear, go to Arthur Avenue. Everyone will be all around. They'll be like loving you because you smell like roasted garlic. And so what I made with this, and again, this is now my Latin roots a little bit. I got one of these, have you seen these empanada wrappers that they sell?
Yes, I have,
so everyone knows these empanada wrappers. Usually you use puff pastry. There is no puff pastry in Harlem that I can find of. So I found these empanada wrappers, and I ended up putting some cheese in there, some of that roasted garlic, wrapped it up, and what you do is you turn them into these kind of like balls a little bit, like herb ball or garlic balls, and you start shaping them into designs like a wreath, in this case, a Christmas tree. You put some of that extra parsley that I've actually microwaved from Duran Gardens on top of it, pop it into the oven, and now you have like this kind of round empanada with cheese and garlic and you name it. And when you serve it for the holidays, you'll make a lot of friends.
I think that's amazing. And what I love is that you kind of mentioned so many different cultures here. With the latkes, we have the empanadas. Can you explain how this can also mean that you don't have to sacrifice, some of your cultural foods while, trying to be healthy?
It's so important to understand, to open your mind and your palate to other cultural foods. And that's what I love about New York City. This melting pot not just brings people, but their cultures. And with that culture comes their culinary expertise, their flavors, their ingredients. One thing that I love about Harlem is getting into the African markets and seeing these spices and these herbs and these tubers and these roots that look so bizarre to me. And all I want to do is grab one and say, what is this? I want to make it. I don't care what it is. And I'm learning from my surroundings. And in New York City, you just need one subway ride to pretty much get to the world.
That's amazing. I love the way you kind of mentioned that. Now, why do you think it was important for Duran Gardens to help encourage people to trade in their withered herbs for fresh ones?
One of the biggest problems people come to me with is that they have a lack of time. They say, I can't cook because I don't have time. What Duran Gardens has done here is give you an opportunity to try out some of their frozen products, frozen cubes. This lack of time, if that's impeding you to get into the kitchen and start cooking not just healthier but better foods, well, they've pretty much made a shortcut. For me, it's all about the hacks, the shortcuts. I have also 2 kids. I don't have time to cook, but to not have to peel garlic, chop it up, put it into the dish, and to just literally pop it out. I mean, you're literally dropping it out. Stop, drop, pop, pop, drop, and go, and done, I should say. That's their kind of motto. It's so convenient. Like, convenience is it's all about that. Stop ordering the fast food. Stop ordering the junk foods. If you want to really eat healthier, find these little shortcuts that are available in your frozen aisle, and I guarantee you will eat better, you'll feel better, and your kids will love you for that.
Now, I also want to talk about how, even for myself, I'm trying to step away from bottled seasoning because they tend to have a lot of salt. How could this also kind of help with that?
Yeah, you know, first of all, when you go to a restaurant, you don't know the amount of butter and salt they're putting into the food, and that's why it tastes so good, of course. When you go to your home, you're like, my food isn't as good as the one in the restaurant. There's a reason for that. It's because they're using a lot of the fat and the salt in it. What you can do is kind of circumvent all that fat and the salt. You can use some of it, of course. Butter is still good, don't get me wrong. But use herbs to kind of to bring up that flavor a little bit and really make it more palatable. Garlic. I mean, you put garlic in pretty much anything, especially instant roasted garlic, and trust me, everything will taste better. So try to grill the chicken, but grill it with something with herbs, with ginger, with turmeric, with garlic, and I guarantee you're going to love it just as much as the takeout chicken.
Now, how can this elevate, your seasonal spread, but, even just beyond the holidays, just cooking in general?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously the holidays are here. We're going to gain a few pounds. That's perfectly fine. But now January comes along and everybody's like, I got to get to the gym and I have to start eating better. This should be kind of a lifestyle thing. I think people should start really welcoming and balancing their life with healthier foods, but also guilty pleasures as well. Because if you don't do that psychologically, I don't know, it's kind of tough to kind of just say, I'm only going to eat healthy for the rest of my life. I'm only going to fast all day long. I'm only going to eat steamed vegetables. No, you want to saute those with a little olive oil. You want to add a little extra herb. You want to fry once in a while, just so that you don't drive yourself nuts. I mean, we live only once, and this is a great reason to really kind of balance your life with herbs, with garlic, with ginger, but also a little bit of that fried chicken.
And I could hear and just feel the passion. As somebody who cooks, can you explain, what kind of drew you to this program?
I had lost a lot of weight during COVID, and that was because I wanted to make sure I was healthy in case I was infected or something were to happen because of all the crisis. And that really inspired me to kind of say, I don't have to have a lot of salt and fat and saturated fats in my foods to eat well. Duran has been an incredibly kind company to partner up with, but I used to use them before I even met these guys and partnered up with them. And they're available at Trader Joe's, at Whole Foods, Wild Fork, if you go online at Wild Fork. But you just do one quick Google search for Duran Gardens or go to DuranGardens.com and you'll find them. And for me to be inspired to cook healthier but still keep that flavor profile, that's just a natural partnership that we have.
Well, Chef George, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I definitely loved learning about this. Like I said, I love convenience things.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely be looking into it. But once again, thank you so much for joining us and bringing this lovely food.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
To learn more about the Wilt Insurance Program, please go to their website at DuranGardens.com. We come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you miss any part of today's show, you can catch the recable cast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum Channel 67 and Verizon Fios Channel 33, or watch anytime on the web at BronxNet.org. You can catch a brand new episode of Open with Darren Jaime on Wednesday and with Rena Valentine on Friday. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.